Good afternoon, everyone. Calling today's Finance Committee hearing on resolutions to order. Today is Monday, April 3rd at 2 p.m. We're in conference room 308. We have two measures that we will be taking testimony on, and then we will do decision making on the entire agenda after. So first up, we have HCR 30, HR 31. This is requesting that the Department of Taxation create a simplified N11 form for use by individuals without taxable income that is subject to state income tax. Our testifier for today on this measure is Department of Taxation.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. The Department, Gary Sugunuma, Director of Taxation. The Department stands on its written testimony offering comments.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? I have a quick question for you. Oh, do you have a question? Oh, I have one, Director, I have one. So in looking at your testimony, you offered comments and you had said that it may require taxpayers to provide additional documentation. The way that the resolution is worded now, where it says you are encouraged to create a simplified form, is that still okay as written and that still allows you to collect documentation, or do we need to make a change to have that happen?
I think it's fine. We've been looking at this from before the session even started. We're not opposed to trying to simplify the form as much as possible. Now the issue is just how simple can it be? If it's just a form that just anybody could submit and then in exchange get a refund of money, then it's prone to fraud and stuff like that. So I think what we're envisioning is doing a simplified form, but maybe requiring some kind of backup verification to prevent fraud. So I think as written, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we're going to be hearing HCR 96. This is requesting the auditor to assess the social and financial effects of mandatory health insurance coverage for fertility preservation procedures for certain persons who have been diagnosed with cancer and whose cancer or cancer treatment may adversely affect their fertility. So first up to testify, we have HMSA.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, HMSA stands on its written testimony providing comments, and we just want to highlight that we've provided language in case the auditor chooses, or in case the reso moves forward. We've provided some helpful language. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Committee members, please note we have other testimony in support submitted. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, any questions for HMSA? Okay, seeing none, we're going to recess for decision making. Recess. Reconvening Finance's first agenda for today on resolutions. First up, we're going to discuss HCR 30, HR 31. The recommendation of the committee, or actually the recommendation of the vice chair, is to pass as is. Are there any comments? Questions? Okay, seeing none, chair for the vote, please.
Okay, we're voting on HCR 30 and HR 31 as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representatives Ayub.
Aye.
Chun.
Aye.
Cochran.
Aye.
Garrett.
Aye.
Kahaloa.
Aye.
Kila.
Aye.
Kobayashi.
Aye.
Lamosao.
Aye.
Morikawa.
Aye.
Ishimoto.
Aye.
Poi Poi.
Aye.
Takenouchi.
Aye.
Alcos.
Aye.
And Ward.
Aye.
Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have HCR 96. My recommendation is to pass this measure as is. Are there any comments? Okay, seeing none, chair for the vote, please.
Okay, we're voting on HCR 96 as is. Noting the presence of all members, are there any reservations or no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. The next resolutions that are on our agenda were put with no public testimony and just decision-making. So what I'm going to do is highlight two of the resolutions where we will be making amendments to them, and then I will turn it over to Chair to take the vote. So the first one, if you look on HCR 100, HR 107, this is related to LRB doing a analysis of APRNs and PAs. So we are going to make a amendment to this on page 2, line 19 to 22. Instead of that paragraph where it's looking at the scope of practice and different jurisdictions, we're going to change it to the following text where it says, a comparative study of how Hawaii differs from other states regarding the scope of practice for advanced practice, registered nurses, and physician's assistants. So it's similar, but a little bit different in what we're asking LRB to do. So any comments or questions about that amendment? Okay.
Chair, does this one still include abortion, the way I see it? I didn't hear what you
There
said about
is,
amendment.
there is a part where the LRB is requested to look at areas of medical care and services, and it does list out abortion care in addition to other items such as school-based health services, remote review process for prescriptions, clinical laboratory. So it lists out 6 different areas that they would like LRB to look at.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we're going to move on to the next resolution that we will be doing amendments on. If you go to HCR 170 and HR 175, this is related to Makua Military Reservation and the task force that will be created. So you'll notice that on page 3, line 10, the task force consists of, number 1, a representative from the legislature. So instead of just having one, where we would have to pick between the Senate and the House, we will actually divide that. So it will now say 1 member from the House who will be appointed by the Speaker of the House, and 1 member from the Senate who will be appointed by the Senate, so that there is both a senator and a representative on the task force. Are there any comments or questions?
I have a question,
Yes.
Chair. What does it mean when it says, they was establishing a task force, I understand, but when it says feasibility plan for the transition of management of the Makua Valley Military Reservation to the state from the U.S. Army upon expiration of the lease, who in the state is going to become the stewards of Makua Valley?
Well, that's sort of the discussion of the task force. So if you look at the resolution, they have a task force with numerous different individuals on here, as well as it determines what the task
okay.
force is looking at and trying to achieve at the end when they have to submit their report.
And they got another 6 years before they have to make up the
Yeah, so
district.
that's why they want to start the task force now to create and facilitate that conversation.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussions or questions? Okay, seeing none, chair for the vote on all
Okay.
these resolutions.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, we're voting on all the resolutions all in one vote. And we're going to be starting off with HCR 25 and HR 27 through the last page, HCR 207 and HR 211. With the exception amendments, all of them are as is, with the exception amendments of moving on to HD2, HCR 100 and HR 107. And then also on page 3 at the bottom, HCR 170 HD1 and 175 HD1 as an HD2. So we're voting it all on one vote. So if there are any reservations or no's on any of them, just tell me them now. Yes,
Reservations,
on which one?
which, 100.
100. Okay. Anybody else? On, we'll do 100 and 107.
Chair,
Yeah.
Chair, the reciprocal of a blanket vote would be a blanket with reservation. Some of these I haven't read or understand. I don't want to get caught with something, so I want to go a blanket with reservation.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, we were voting on all of them in one vote. Are there any other reservations or no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much, committee members. We are going to recess before the next agenda, and right now we are adjourned on this agenda.
Committee on Finance will come to order for our second agenda, dealing with Senate bills. First up is Senate Bill 855 SD1 HD1 relating to condominium reserve requirements. First up is Hui Aoi. On Zoom? Not present. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next measure. Next up is Senate Bill 1518 SD2 HD2 relating to the Department of Education. First up is Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ken Kakisaka with the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure, and we are just requesting one additional amendment, if possible, to revert to adding one more year in the sunset as provided in the HD1. Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is State Procurement. On Zoom.
Okay, aloha kako. Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the committee. My name is Stacy Kalenimoku, testifying on behalf of my acting administrator of the State Procurement Office, Baneka Akui. The State Procurement Office stands on a written testimony. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next measure. Well, actually, questions, members. Do you have any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to the next one. Senate Bill 1596 SD1 HD1 relating to school campuses. First up is HBHA.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, stand on our testimony in support.
Thank you very much. HSTA.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of Osatui, President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. The HST supports this bill relating to housing on the island of Maui in 2 complexes. This is so critical in order to recruit and retain our teachers. Without housing, you cannot have teachers in the classroom. And we do have a teacher from Maui that will be telling you the sad stories of what our teachers are going through because there is not affordable housing on Maui. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you. HGEA.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair. Nui Sebas here with HGEA. We stand on our written testimony in strong support of this measure. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Please come forward.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ashley Olson, and I'm a teacher at Lahainaluna High School. And you'll forgive me, but it's a little bit more intimidating to speak with you rather than a bunch of teenagers. So if I misspeak, stutter, or otherwise make a fool of myself, I do apologize in advance. I want to tell you a little bit about Lahainaluna specifically. Right now, we have 2 teachers that I'm aware of who are living out of their cars. We have another teacher who is renting a couch in a 1-bedroom apartment for $800 a month. I am one of the extraordinarily fortunate individuals who was able to purchase affordable workforce housing. I moved in almost 2 years ago. My 2-bedroom, 1-bath place was about $345,000. Since during the pandemic, there were several units that fell out of escrow. I'm sure you're aware that with affordable workforce housing, there's a very narrow set of parameters. You have to have low enough income to qualify, yet high enough income to qualify for a mortgage and be able to pay a down payment and closing costs. So like I said, several of these units fell out of escrow during the pandemic and were eventually sold at market rate for in the 400s, mid 400s. One of those 1-bedroom units which was sold at market rate, so not subject to the restricted deed buyback, sold on January 31st for, I'm glad you're sitting down, $655,000. A 1-bedroom unit in my affordable complex rents for $2,600 a month. An emergency hire teacher earns between $38,000 and $40,000 a year, and you're aware that we have a painful number of emergency hires. Those individuals are paying to go to school so they can achieve their Hawaii state licensure. At $2,600 a month, you're looking at $32,500 a year for rent alone. So I'm not sure how you pay Hawaii state taxes, federal taxes, insurance, gasoline, food, and all of those other things that we think are critical to, sustaining life and quality of life. So we are in desperate need of housing for our DOE employees. In speaking with Angela Young from CARES, she made me aware of the fact that there's concerns about the SFA not having the statutory authority to administer housing. And it's my understanding that the bill could be amended to include statutory language that would then authorize the SFA to administer the pilot program. Anyway, thank you so much for your time and attention today. Thanks for not making me any more nervous than I already was. And thank you so much for hopefully making sure that we have educators who can stay home. I have former students who will get a hold of me and say, "Miss, I'm coming home. Are you going to be there?" They want to stay here. This bill will help maintain the fabric of our community, and I hope you'll support it. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none. Questions, members? Representative Kobayashi, followed by Ward.
Has somebody looked into that 2-mile radius issue? I mean, having such a small radius, I think handicaps the entire proposal. So maybe somebody should look into that and look to see what would be a appropriate, how would you say, geographic area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative Ward.
HSTA, the longest-serving teacher in the state, please. I wonder who that might be.
Oh, sugars.
My question is a little bit different. Can you make sure that if this bill passes, that you make the best possible pilot? Because everybody's going to be watching and seeing how you do it, and this is so important not to fail, so I hope you watch it very closely. And the question in that statement is, any estimation of the cost to get this kicked off the ground?
I've been in a couple. Thank you, Mr. Ward, for that question. I hope I can answer
You are
it.
the oldest serving teacher in the, not the oldest, the longest serving
I'm
teacher.
the longest.
Sorry.
I could probably be the oldest too.
I stand corrected by the teacher.
Oh, gee, I forgot the question. No,
Oh,
I'm joking. I'm only joking.
Money.
The money. In one of the hearings that we were in, one of the finance committee person asked, "How much do you think you would need?" And poor Mr. Farias was sitting in the audience, and I believe they were going to appropriate $200 million for him to start, and he would need to spend the money in July so that you don't have to do maintenance of effort with the money.
Okay,
And
good.
if you feel that's not enough, you guys can recommend more money. We would love to have more money.
Now I know why you're such a long-standing teacher. Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is any further questions? Okay, just clarification. The $200 million is what we appropriated last year, and then to this current project, there's $15 million that was appropriated earlier to DOE. But we this bill tries to move it to SFA, so that's what it does. Okay, any further questions? Okay, we're going to move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 1351 SD2 HD1, relating to infant early childhood mental health.
Thank you.
Okay, first up is Office of the Governor. Okay, not here. Next up is Department of Health.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Lauren Kim, Policy and Planning Officer for DOH, speaking on behalf of Dr. Fink. Thank you very much for hearing this very critical and important bill. This bill commits resources to plug a glaring puka in the systems of care for infants in early childhood and our keiki. This is a period of time in their lives where 90% of their brain will develop and will largely benefit or impact what kind of people they will become 15, 20, 30 years down the road. So this is a puka that our society needs to pay more attention to. The department respectfully requests 2 amendments. These amendments were accepted by the House Committee on Human Services, but due to a filing issue, were not picked up. Very briefly, we ask for instances of program to be replaced with pilot project. There is insufficient meat on the bones to actually call this a program to amend chapter. So we'll run a pilot, we'll evaluate, come back to the legislature with what we think are going to be spectacular results, and propose part, chapter, section as appropriate with an underlying budget request to make it sustainable. And the second is to assure that other folks who are getting the 0 to 3, 0 to 5 space are at the table, and that we're not bumping into each other, and that we're working together. So we would like to make sure that Executive Office on Early Learning, or the Office of Wellness and Resilience have a role in this to steer the direction of the RFP and of the evaluation, et cetera, et cetera. So with those, we ask for your kind support of this extremely important bill, and I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is commit to Keiki.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. I'm Carrie Yarosevich, co-chair for Commit to Keiki. We stand in support of our written testimony, and we encourage the committee to invest upstream. The state can save millions of dollars in downstream mental health crises if we invest early in our youngest Keiki and their families by focusing on prevention. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you. Next is Early Childhood Action Strategy on Zoom.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. This is Doug Emig speaking on behalf of Early Childhood Action Strategy. We stand in strong support of this measure and stand on our written testimony, and simply want to add that our some 300 network partners who work in the early childhood space to align priorities for children from prenatal to age 8 strongly support this measure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, members' questions. Representative Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Kim, are you still here? Do you have a model or a place where this has been in place and it's been successful, or are we still kind of in the beginning foothills of making sure that this works?
So there are concepts out there from which we are borrowing. So some of the stakeholders, Early Childhood Action Strategy, et cetera, are looking at the experiences of other states. One of the supporters has mentioned Michigan. We're just getting it off the ground in the state of Hawaii. So like I said, this is a commitment of resources to fill this puka. So I've been in conversation, and I've seen some documents of some well thought out plans. So this is not going to be, gee, let's toss it out there and see what we can get, but to actually have a procurement process that is informed by the experiences of other states and the specific unique needs of the state of Hawaii.
Because intuitively, it's very attractive. It's like you don't have to reinvent the wheel, given what you just said.
Correct. So there's a medical side of things, there's a childcare side of things, but pulling all of the pieces that help a baby from birth to 5, a lot of systems touch that, but it isn't until they get to the school age where you really see a lot of coordination. So that space does need filling, and I think this is a wonderful start to fill that puka.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next bill. Senate Bill 1473 HD2 SD2 HD1 relating to health. First up is Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities. Thank you very much. Next is Department of Health.
Chair, the Department of Health stands on its testimony, will bring comments, and a suggested amendment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have Hawaii Association of Behavioral Health Analysis. On Zoom.
Not present.
Okay. Next is Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Action Group.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Darlene Chen Scoville, and thank you for having me all over again to testify in behalf of children impacted and families impacted with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. SB 1473 is really critical in caring for this population, only because we don't turn 21 and our disabilities go away. It remains with us, so therefore they need care past 21 years of age. I stand on my written testimony. Please support this bill, and thank you for allowing me to testify.
Okay, thank you. Next is Linda Ilento on Zoom.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, please proceed.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Finance Committee. This is Linda Ilento. I'm a resident in Kaneohe, and I've provided written testimony as well as different other testimonies that already presented.
Okay, now we don't hear you. Okay, I think we're having technical difficulties with you. We'll give it another few seconds. Okay, we're gonna move on. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on to the next bill. Senate Bill 1151 ST2 HD1 relating to Hawaii Community College's Promise Program. First up is State Council on Developmental Disabilities.
Thank you very much. Next up to testify, we have the University of Hawaii.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Committee of the University of Hawaii Community Colleges stand on testimony and support.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have UPA.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sarah Beamer for UPA. We stand on our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Yes, Representative Ward.
Please. You know, everybody and their uncle has to fill out a FAFSA. What's the logic of exempting this for the Promise Program, or is it because of the lack of socioeconomic data that may come out of it?
It's for this is specifically more directed to the certificate program within the community colleges. So often, community college students or certificate program students within the community colleges don't qualify for FAFSA, and so that tends to disqualify them in general from receiving funding through this program.
Okay, so it's a technicality.
Yeah, so it's the nature of the certificates. They're often shorter, those sorts of things. They don't qualify for FAFSA, and so they're not eligible for these programs. So this is a different, a way for they can still get some funding.
Got it. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna go to our next measure, SB 814 SD2 HD1 relating to electronic information technology accessibility for persons with limited English proficiency. First up to testify, we have the Office of Language Access on Zoom.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Kirikawa and member of the committee. Apirak Bababuan from the Office of Language Access. We stand on our written testimony offering comment on this measure and will be available for any question the committee may have. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Lazarian Gill with Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights, representing more than 25 immigrant-led and immigrant-serving organizations across Hawaii. We are in strong support of this bill as language access, as you can see behind my head on the screen, is our #1 priority as a coalition. We saw over and over again during the pandemic how difficult it was for our limited English proficient community to navigate our state agencies and websites. Oftentimes the web page, the landing page for a department is like their front door, and if folks cannot navigate that, then it's difficult for them to even sign up for services or know what might be available to them. So what this bill is asking for is just some standards and to move along in what we've seen at the federal level in advancing language access, and to make sure that we are doing it so that it's consistent across different departments. I think what is really important is that no matter what website you're going to, that the state, a part of the state government, you can look to the same corner and know that you can find language resources there. Just as a reminder, this is not something that is just nice, this is federal law. If we are not in compliance, we're in violation of Title VI, and we can be sued. So this is one way that we can make sure that we're taking that step to be in compliance with federal law. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wanting to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to our next measure, SB 1254, SD2, HD2, relating to the Kaiwi Coast. First up to testify, we have DLNR.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. DLNR stands in support.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing none, next, going on to our next measure, SB 1332, SD1, HD1, relating to emergency management. First up to testify, we have HCDA on Zoom. Not present. Okay, next up we have Haima on Zoom. Okay. Haima. Oh, hello. Hi, you can go ahead.
Vice Chair, hello, Chair, Vice Chair. This is James Browse, the Administrator for Haima. We stand on our written testimony.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next up to testify, we have the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Trevor Arizzo with the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii. We stand on a written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go on to our next measure, SB 459, SD2, HD1, relating to the hydrogen fueling system subaccount. First up to testify, we have the Hawaii PUC.
Aloha, good afternoon, Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, and members of the House Committee on Finance. My name is Andrew Kabe. I'm here on behalf of Chair Leo Senshin. I stand on our written testimony in support of this measure. I am available for any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, oh yes, Kobayashi.
The bill says that the money should be used for, quote, the administration, unquote, of the program. I'm not sure that money should be given just for administration. Does administration mean management, or administration means management level administration?
So as far as I understand, the funds will be used for the purpose of the rebates itself.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to our next measure, SB 504 SD1 HD2, relating to environmental protection. First up to testify, we have the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Trevor Abruzua with the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii. The Chamber has concerns regarding SB 504, and the banning of these chemicals would put our small businesses at a disadvantage to companies on the mainland, on the continent. I just want to point out the FDA does authorize use of these chemicals. There is no ban federally on these, and there's also no federal law banning these products. So our local businesses, our small businesses would have to compete with that and not offering these, and then it would put them at a disadvantage. National companies on the continent would be able to ship those products here and sell those. So just want to point that out. We do have concerns. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up to testify, we have the Retail Merchants of Hawaii on Zoom.
Aloha and good afternoon. Thank you. The retail merchants are opposed to this bill. As the previous testifier said, the FDA authorizes the use of PFAS in not only food application, but also in cosmetics as well. There are tens of thousands of variations of the chemical PFAS, and we want to make sure that everybody realizes that firefighting foam is not one of the ingredients used in the products for personal care packaging. It's kind of like the red dye that we have in char siu. It's not the same red dye that's, consumed or used in nail polish or to paint your house with. It is a very different chemical. And it's the same thing with PFAS. We also want to point out that there has been a study and research has determined that the levels of PFAS in individual products are unlikely to pose a risk for consumers. And some of the products that would be banned would be long wear and waterproof makeup, anti-wrinkle cream, dental floss, mascaras, lipsticks, hand soaps, deodorant, shower gels, perfume, menstrual underwear, shampoos, conditioner, hair gel, mouthwash, toothpaste, and a lot of other things. By banning these products that the FDA deems safe, the choices consumers in Hawaii will shrink considerably. And for those, a lot of the retailers are going to lose out because they're going to have to sell these things at a highly discounted rate in order to probably make what the deadline is. And it's going to really impact the bottom line. It's really going to hurt a lot of the small businesses who are unable to send it back to a sister company on the mainland as well. And because we feel that FDA does not deem these as being detrimental to our health and has approved it, we hope that you hold this measure. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next up to testify, we have Hawaii Sustainable Farms.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. Robert Benz for Hawaii Sustainable Farms in strong support. And I also support the amendments of the Sierra Club and the Democratic Caucus of Hawaii. We have water bills. They say through all things, through water, all things find life. This shouldn't just be an empty saying. It's very important when the water gets contaminated with this forever chemicals. It takes away Hawaii's ability to feed ourselves, and if we're cut off from these retail merchants and big box stores, we're gonna need farmers to be able to provide food. I'm on the board of a farm on Oahu, and one of the farm's location in Waialava has a spring where it's already contaminated by the PFAs. Reading on the EPA about how they're gonna set PFA drinking water standards and $2 billion for local grants and such. I think this grant should go to help Hawaii farmers and to get rid of these PFAS. This bill is the good way to go about it because banning the imports of all PFAs, these forever chemicals that are known to cause damage, is the best way to get rid of them. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Yes, Representative Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Who's the chemistry expert that testified?
You have the option of the Chamber of Commerce, Retail Merchants,
Okay.
or Hawaii Sustainable Farms.
I'll pick the
That's who
chamber.
testified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you
Not
got
sure about that,
you have a
but-
degree in chemistry. Yeah, the PFAS. In the composition of it, does this include Ziploc bags and all of the things that Tupperware would be basically?
There's dozens and dozens of products represented.
What does it do when you put it in? Because the bill says if you intentionally do it, you're going to break the law. Intentionally you put it in because you want to get what out of it?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer to that, but I do know to your first point, there's a number of household items, cosmetic items, food packaging items that would affect small businesses here, whether that's food manufacturers, whether that's the retailers that use this to with it. But to answer that specific question, again, I'm not a chemistry expert. I don't know what it's
Okay, what
specifically
about
used
this
for.
one? It says clothing. Am I wearing anything that's got PFAS in it?
You likely might be. I can't answer specifically, but I know Tina Yamaki on the line and the retail merchant. She had the full list of products that was affected. She might
Chair,
be able
can
to.
I ask her?
Sure, go ahead, you can ask her a question.
Tina, am I wearing
Yes.
any PFAS clothing?
I don't know what your clothing is made of, but PFAS is in a lot of items that we use on a daily basis. You know, you asked about Tupperware and all of that. So basically what PFAS does is it makes sure that, you know, like the grease doesn't go through. That's one makeup of the chemical. You know, when you buy hamburgers and things like that, they kind of wrap it up in some type of foil type of thing so the burger grease doesn't go through the wrapper and get on your clothes or through the bag and in your car. So it's a very different, PFAS is, like I said, it's made up of very many different types of chemicals. It's not just one thing. So everyone is talking about the water that was on Red Hill and all the firefighting foam that was in it. Well, that type of foam that is used in that same makeup is not the same that goes into like foodware or even your clothing or even in cosmetics or personal things. It's a different type of chemical makeup. Like I said, there's I think something like 12,000 different versions of it.
Okay, then the question would be, what came first, the PFAS in the foam or PFAS in the clothing and all these other items you're talking about? When was it first discovered as a harmful chemical?
I'm not sure because, like I said, PFAS is made up of different formulations. I'm not a chemist. I don't know when it was made. It's the chicken and the egg question for me too. I can't give you the specific year that it was founded, but I can tell you that it has been around for a while. FDA has tested it. There has been studies done on it, and it seems like there's no, especially for personal care products and things like cardboard boxes and things like that, there hasn't had any detrimental health effects on people, according to the FDA. If not, they would have pulled these products a long time ago and did a nationwide ban on them.
Okay, as Red Hill becomes more and more front and center, I think this same issue follows equally so. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for your input. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other additional questions? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna go on to our next bill, SB 419, SD1, HD1, relating to carbon sequestration. First up to testify is the Department of Agriculture.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Morris Santa, Deputy for the Department. The Department will stand on its written testimony offering comments regarding this ambitious program which seeks to optimize the sequestration of carbon and GHG emissions. We do want to emphasize, though, that the cost of doing this laudable activity will impact farmers and agriculture operations significantly and put them at possibly significant risk. So we urge the pilot program to consider those costs in addition to the pure costs of the actual carbon and GHG gases that are sequestered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have DLNR.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Jenny Grimm from Division of Forestry and Wildlife. We stand on our written testimony in support of this legislation, and thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you very much. Next up on Zoom, we have Matthew Geyer.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Matthew Geyer, Hawaii Environmental Change Agents, testifying as an individual in support. I'll stand on my written testimony in support, and just as a reminder to folks to really, when you're considering the immediate costs, you also need to consider the long-term cost of the next generations of the impacts of climate on their health and their ability to have a sustainable life. And so please consider that when you're considering the immediate costs as well.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna go to our next measure, SB 458 SD2 HD2, relating to geothermal royalties. First up to testify, we have Office of Hawaiian Affairs. On Zoom. Not present. Okay, next we have DLNR.
Usually we're first. Anyway, Cardi Chang, Chief Engineer, DLNR, and we are submitting joint testimony on behalf of DLNR, DBIDS Hawaii Energy Office, and the University of Hawaii. We are offering comments to this bill, and the intent of this bill is good, where it is going to utilize geothermal royalties to go to the University of Hawaii, which is the appropriate agency for more geothermal exploration. The intent is good, however, we are proposing a compromise to share the royalties that the DLNR currently receives to go to the University of Hawaii. However, the other recipients of royalties are the County of Hawaii and OHA. We are not proposing any reduction in OHA share, however, it has to be conditioned on the county willing to give a portion of their share of royalties. The DLNR uses the royalties because we are mandated to protect this public trust resource, but we also recognize that the county utilizes the royalties for community benefit. So if we're all going to move this measure forward, we believe that our proposal to compromise is a fair one, and it should also be acknowledged by the county as well. Thank you.
Maria Tomei, Hawaii State Energy Office. HSEO stands on the joint testimony with DLNR and the recommended amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up on Zoom, we have Hawaii County Council.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Finance Committee. My name is Ashley Kirkowitz. I am council member for Hawaii County Council District 4, Lower Puna. I represent the community that is impacted by Puna geothermal operations. I submitted testimony late, but did want to acknowledge the strategic amendments made by members of the CPC committee on March 22nd to fully restore the county share of geothermal royalties. We have been able to demonstrate that we can put this money to use to support our community through a relocation program as well as a community benefits program. To date, we've received $10.3 million and have expended those fundings, that money, to be able to support 27 households in relocation and have been able to do amazing things for the residents that are directly impacted by geothermal operations, including creating a transfer station, purchasing buses for mass transportation, repaving, street lighting, buying SCBA compressors for local firefighters. These are things that we were able to do because we had geothermal royalties. I think in CPC's wisdom in fully restoring our funding, they could see that we are able to put this money to work to benefit the community. We do not accept the proposal that's being put forward by state agencies to come to a compromise. I think it's really important that if the state has a vision to explore renewable energy solutions, whether it's through research or development, we humbly request that they put their money forward and use that to explore, but it's not something that the county is willing to entertain at this time. We are happy to, however, put forward annual reports to let you know how we are making a difference in our community with those royalties. Thank you. Available to answer any questions folks might have.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Yes, Representative Kahaloa.
For DLNR, can you explain what you use with the royalty funding currently?
Yes. So the royalties, the mandate that DLNR is charged with is Chapter 182. So what that is, the disposition of mineral rights. So that includes all the leasing of this public trust resources, all the regulatory aspects of well drilling, royalty collections, and so forth. So that mandate ensures that this public trust resources is developed safely, and that falls on the department or the borderline of natural resources.
So is that for operational staffing?
Yes, that is correct. We have a mineral resource program that is entrusted to protect this resource, and whenever a developer, such as currently there's only PGV, but we anticipate more development ahead, we have to ensure that the leases, because to mine this resource you need a mining lease, is issued and managed over the lifetime of the lease. Anytime the developer wants to drill wells or get their operations approved, that falls under the Board of Land and Natural Resources purview. So that has to be approved. The royalties methodology has to be approved by the board as well. So all of that falls within Chapter 182 of our charge.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? Yes, Representative Poi Poi.
For DLNR, I'm just curious, a couple questions. First is, how much estimated is collected in royalties every year?
Oh, okay, sure. So we've been collecting royalties. Basically, royalties are generated by the amount of power that's sold to the utility. So over the last 15 years, it fluctuates. It depends on what that sale is. And as you know, during the lava event for, was it 1.5 years, 2 years, we got zero. So instead of giving you every year, we came up with an average over the last 15 years. And that average total royalties was about 1.6 million. However, the department per statute only gets 50% of that. So our net take out of that was about 822,000. 30% goes to the county and 20% goes to OHA.
Okay, so for DLNR's percent, it's primarily spent on administering the program.
That is correct, the Mineral Resource Program, which is what the legislature approved those bodies and that program, I think back in 2009.
Would DLNR be open to also complying or submitting the same reports as now it's the county is going to be required to do?
Yes, I do
Okay.
believe there is a
Okay.
report that we do submit. I don't know exactly what that report requires to be reported, but we're open to do that
Okay.
if necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, Representative Kahalo.
Just a follow-up for DLNR. Obviously, the county doesn't agree to the percentage shifts. So with your testimony, how do we rectify this moving forward? Because they disagree to the reduction in percentage. So will DLNR and the other divisions decrease their funding?
Well, I think the legislature has a prerogative, but we're basically saying that at least at the state level, to move forward, we have to take a little bit. And I think this bill's intent is to really move the state forward with renewable energy goals. So if we're not going to compromise and we're just going to dig our heels in, this is really not going to help the state of Hawaii. So we're willing to compromise a portion of our share, and we hopefully the other agencies that receive royalties can do the same, to look at the greater good of what the intent of this bill is. And if, you know, we also noted in our testimony that geothermal exploration is not, it's an expensive proposition. You know, if there needs to be an effort to look for more geothermal, there got to be more funding than what the royalties are going to provide. It's going to cost them millions of dollars to really drill wells, to look at potential.
Why does the state have to pay for geothermal exploration and not private entities interested in doing geothermal exploration?
That's a good question. I think the purpose of this bill is to, like I mentioned, that geothermal exploration is very expensive. For a developer to come in and drill wells without having the assurance that they're going to get this mining lease or even find potential sites, it's a very risky business, and it's probably not going to entice or incentivize developers to come to Hawaii. So what the university does, they go out, get money, get grants, and they do exploration. And because it's using public funds, they publish that. And developers can kind of look at this information and data and determine whether or not they want to further, you know, come to the state of Hawaii and develop. So it makes information available that wouldn't be available to a prospective developer.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Chair.
Any additional questions? Yes, Representative Ward.
Excuse me, if I may continue that line of logic. How many geothermal wells are on DHHL or OHA land, if any? Or present or future, I should say?
Well, DHHL land, I don't believe there are any. And the land that the wells are, we only have one active plant, which is Pua Geothermal Ventures, which is on private lands.
That's all private land.
Yeah, but the mining, the the mineral rights are public. The state owns the mineral rights.
Are any of the future drilling plans on OHA or DHHL land that you?
I'm not aware of any, other than just what I've heard in the media, that, DHHL lands could have potential. But I think that's really DHHL to really answer that question, whether or not they're pursuing that. As you know, DHHL will own the mineral rights under DHHL
Yeah,
lands.
100% according to this, right? But isn't there a heat map that says there's geothermal and basically all the islands? It's a matter of just the cost of
I think there's
tapping it.
I think there's, I don't know if it's called a heat map, but there is potential areas that have potential. That I've heard Wala'i, maybe the Saddle, and so forth through previous exploration attempts done by the University of Hawaii.
Mhm. And the one in Puna is forever and ever, or is there a shelf life that you're going to see given the structural geology of it?
The mining lease that is currently in effect for PGV is a 65-year lease, and I believe it was executed in the early 80s. Am I correct? Yeah.
So as we lock in these shares, that may be disputed year after year, but that's why it's good that the counties get as much input as possible at this point. Anyways, thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna go on to our next
Vice
measure.
Chair.
SB
Vice Chair.
1520 SD2 HD1 relating to the Hawaii Pacific Hydrogen Hub. First up to testify, we have DBED. Not here? Okay. Let's see, hold on. Okay, next up we have the Hawaii State Energy Office.
Aloha, we stand on our testimony in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have University of Hawaii.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The University of Hawaii stands on its written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to our next measure, SB 297 SD2 HD1 relating to grants and aid. First up to testify, we have the, no one is here for that measure, so we will move on to the next measure. SB 1527 SD2. First up to this is relating to address address confidentiality. First up to testify, we have the Department of Law Enforcement.
Good afternoon, Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, members of the committee. Department of Law Enforcement stand in strong support of the program and on our written testimony and the recommended finance obligation and positions that go with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go on to our next measure, SB 1277 SD2 HD1. This is making appropriations for claims against the state, its officers, or its employees. First up to testify, we have the Attorney General.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Karen Inagaki, Deputy Attorney General. The appropriation bill currently has 24 claims, and those claims are described in our testimony as Attachment A. And since the bill was last amended, we have 4 new claims, and those claims are described in our Attachment B to our testimony. And we would ask that this bill be passed with amendments to add the new claims, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to our next measure, SB 1490 SD1 HD1. This is relating to state employees. First up to testify, we have the Attorney General.
Good afternoon, Chair and Vice Chair, Deputy Attorney General Amanda Weston. We just have a couple of comments. First of all, we're asking for additional language to be added, clarifying that the state employee needs to cooperate with the defense, and that means providing all necessary information that the Attorney General needs to make the adequate defense. And then secondly, if a motion does become necessary, it is going to include some information that is potentially damaging to that employee. So in order to protect the state employee, we are asking that the motion and any filings be be filed in camera with the judge, so that opposing counsel and the public do not have access to the information that could be damaging to the state employee, and that a hearing also would be in camera with the judge, attorney general, and the state employee only. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have HGEA.
Thanks, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We stand in support of our testimony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to our next measure, SB 57. This is relating to the judiciary's Olelo Hawaii initiatives. First up to testify, we have the judiciary.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brandon Kimura, Deputy Administrator, Director of the Courts for the Judiciary. We are in strong support of the measure and appreciate you hearing it. Other than that, I'll stand on our written testimony, but I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to our next measure, SB 813 SD1 HD1, relating to court interpreters. First up to testify, we have the judiciary on Zoom.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Debbie Tulang D. Silva from the Judiciary's Office on Equality and Access to the Court. The Judiciary is in strong support of this measure. Thank you for hearing it, and we stand in support of our testimony. Just wanted to highlight that the Judiciary does see the need for increased rates for court interpreters. They're a critical role in our administration of justice, and we ask that you strongly consider our request for supplemental appropriation to support the increased fees, and also note our proposed amendment for the effective date. And I will remain if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Office of Language Access on Zoom.
Good afternoon again, Chair, Vice Chair, and member of the committee. Abdirak Bangungruan, the Office of Language Access. We stand on our written testimony in support of this measure and defer to Judiciary for any substantive recommendation. And I would like to mention that because now we and Ms. Tulang da Silva, who just testified, we are testifying from Maui College, that where we come here on a yearly basis to recruit a court interpreter. So I believe that by this measure would be new motivation that we can increasing the number of interpreter around the state of Hawaii. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'll be available for any question the committee may have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Liza Ryan-Gill with Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights. We're in strong support of this bill. Language access is our priority, and we see this as key to folks being able to have a fair trial and representation within the justice system. We work with interpreters and interpreter training programs. It's very difficult to encourage folks to go down this path when it is not a living wage for them. And so we really appreciate you considering this measure and hope that it can be passed through. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this? Yes, please come up.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Aloha and konnichiwa. My name is Ayano Hara Nishimura. I'm a Japanese interpreter, a court interpreter. As a professional interpreter for 25 years of experience, I support SB 813. Well, I'd like to emphasize here that we're not really asking for a raise here. I'm here to inform you that the state court interpreters are experiencing pay decrease. It was not brought to people's attention for many years. Our fee has not been adjusted since 2007. And 2007 was the year that the very first iPhone came out. At the time, the adult monthly city bus pass was $40. I came here by bus today. Now it is, the monthly adult bus pass is $80. A dim sum dish used to be $1.90 back in the days in 2007. Now it is $5 or even $6. And food and gas, just regular grocery shopping, really, really costly right now. but our pay is still the same. Everything else keeps going up. That is why I'm calling it as a pay decrease, relatively speaking. We're doing the same job and get paid less. Therefore, this time, we're asking the legislature to make an adjustment to bring it up to 2023. As we can see, court and legal interpreter requires the highest level of language proficiency and skills to be performed, as well as strict professional conduct and ethics. Yet our current fee is lower than that of entry-level community interpreting, such as accompanying a patient to a clinic for a checkup. The interpreters already have started to lose interest in taking the state assignments because other jobs they can get paid better. Our job is not full-time. So sometimes we get only $50 a day. It's not enough to make a living in Hawaii. This leads to leading to a serious retention problem. And when good interpreters do not stay, the quality of service is affected. For these reasons, I would like to express my strong support for this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Oh, yes, Representative Kobayashi.
For judiciary, is this tier system the same regardless of which language? I say that because I worked with a nonprofit organization that had a language bank, and it was easier to get interpreters in some languages than in others.
Yes. So the tier system that the judiciary has in its structure does not apply to every language, in the sense that a lot of it is commensurate with passing a certain oral exam beyond tier 1, which is the entry level. And not every single language has a nationally recognized oral court interpreting certification exam. Hawaii has been a model which uses a unique system in some alternative oral exams that we have found comparable and reliable, because a lot of the languages that we encounter in our state are considered rare by most of the continental US states. So the bottom line answer to your question is not every single tier would be applicable to every language. It all depends on what exam is available in those languages.
No, what I'm suggesting is that you add some flexibility to your tier system so that you pay more for certain languages where interpreters are hard to find.
We'll consider that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to our next measure, which is SB 1166, SD2 HD1. This is relating to the renewal of driver's license. We do have supportive testimony. However, no one has indicated they will be present to testify. Is there anyone here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go on to our next measure since there's no one to ask questions to. Next measure is SB 821, SD1 HD1, relating to fireworks. First up to testify, we have the Department of Law Enforcement.
Good afternoon again. Department of Law Enforcement stands in strong support of the program and have a written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up to testify, we have the Department of Transportation on Zoom.
Aloha. Thank you again. I'm Drea Kalili. I'm the Deputy Director of Transportation for Harbors. We're named in the bill, and we are in strong support of the bill. And we didn't include in our written testimony, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't make the request to, for some consideration, to include our private shipping company, or at least a representative thereof, on the task force, as they'll be instrumental in identifying the best ways to do the enforcement. And we're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members' questions. Yes, Representative Nishimoto.
Thank you. For the Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any objections to the Harbor Users Group being added to the task force?
Yes. We have no problem if they are going to be included in the development of a plan, the plan that's called for in the bill. However, this is a law enforcement focused task force specifically directed to identifying, investigating, and prosecuting law enforcement operations and criminal activity. And there's no place for a private entity to be in with that group per se. There's no law enforcement agency going to share information with the private sector, especially when it comes down to acting on actionable intelligence, where they need information, they need to conduct their investigations. I think HUGS and the private sector would be ideal partners for an overall strategic plan to address non-law enforcement related things. But with respect to the law enforcement operations, no, they should not be involved in them.
Okay, the Department of Transportation just testified that they should have a part in this task force. What do you say to that?
Like I said, if it's limited to the development of a strategic plan, because there is shipping, there's some logistics issues that are involved, we have no problem with that, but they should not be included in any of the law enforcement operations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna go to our next measure, SB 151 SD2 HD1 relating to law enforcement reform. Let's see, first up to testify, no one has indicated that they will be present to testify. Is there anyone here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on since there's no one to ask questions to, and we're gonna go to our last measure on the agenda, which is SB 483 SD1 HD1. This is relating to the Uniform Probate Code. First up to testify is the judiciary on Zoom.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Niebling. I'm a member of the Judiciary's Committee on the Uniform Probate Code and Probate Court Practices. We did submit testimony, which I'll stand on, but I'm here available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions?
May I testify?
Oh, yes, please go
Thank
ahead.
you. Aloha, I'm Elizabeth Kent, and I'm one of Hawaii's uniform law commissioners, and this is a uniform law. So inexplicably, my testimony that I submitted over the weekend in support was lost, but I'm here to testify in support of this bill. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing no questions, we are going to recess for decision making.
2:30 agenda. Starting off with Senate Bill 855 SD1 HD1. Recommendation is to pass out as an HD2, defecting the effective date, re-effecting the effective date, and technical amendments. Any discussion? Vice Chair for the vote.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 855 SD1 HD1 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ayu.
Aye.
Representative Chun.
Aye.
Representative Cochran.
Aye.
Representative Garrett.
Aye.
Representative Kahaloa.
Aye.
Representative Kila.
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi.
Aye.
Representative Lamosao.
Aye.
Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Nishimoto.
Aye.
Representative Poi Poi.
Aye.
Representative Takunouchi.
Aye.
Representative Alcos.
Aye.
Representative Ward.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to Senate Bill 1518 SD2 HD2 relating to Department of Education. We're going to maybe moving it out as an HD3, blanking out the numbers and tech. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1518 SD2 HD2 with amendments, noting the presence of all members will be noted present for the rest of this agenda. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 1596 SD1 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1596 SD1 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving on to Senate Bill 1351 SD2 HD1. We're going to be moving this out as an HD2, blanking out the FTEs, redefecting the effective date, and tech. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1351 SD2 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 1473 SD2 HD1, moving out as an HD2, blanking out the FTE and tech. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1473 SD2 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to Senate Bill 1151 SD2 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1151 SD2 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving to Senate Bill 814 SD2 HD1. Moving it out as HD2, blanking out the FTE and tech. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 814 SD2 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 1254 SD2 HD2 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1254 SD2 HD2 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving to Senate Bill 1332 SD1 HD1. We're going to be moved out as an HD2, blanking out the dollar amount, taking out any reference to appropriation or to the trust monies, and deleting Section 7 and tech. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1332 SD1 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, moving to Senate Bill 459 SD2 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 459 SD2 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 504 SD1 HD2. We're going to move it out as an HD3, re-defecting the effective, re-effecting the effective date. Defecting the effective date and tech. Any discussion?
Wait, Chair, so you're defecting the date, right?
It's
So
defective.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I vote WR, please?
Sure.
And then I'm just gonna share that I think there was a similar bill that came through this committee, and the sentiments I had prior, I share again, but also when we look to enact bold things as a state, we may be doing independently versus other states, instead of it coming down from federal. We may be putting ourselves in a position not to support local in some of these measures, and I think that this body and its every intent is to support local. So for that, I'm just gonna say WR for now and see how it advances.
Yeah, understood.
Sure.
This bill has a lot of problems and a long way to go, so it's, yes, Representative Lamasao.
Same request, Chair.
Sure.
Thank you.
Representative Ayu.
Chair.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 504 SD1 HD2 with amendments noting the reservations of Representatives Ayu, Keela, and Lamosao. Are there additional reservations?
Chair, I
Chris?
have no with reservations.
Okay,
I know it doesn't exist, but
what would you like me to mark you down as?
with reservations to the second power.
Okay, I'm just gonna put with reservations for Representative Ward and
Thank you.
reservations for Representative Alcos. Are there additional reservations? Are there any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to Senate Bill 419 SD1 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 419 SD1 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to Senate Bill 458 SD2 HD2. We're going to move this out in HD3, blanking out all the percentages and tech. Any discussion? Representative Kahlo.
Chair, thank you for leaving that to further discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Okay, Vice Chair for the vote.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 458 SD2 HD2 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to Senate Bill 1528 SD2 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1520 SD2 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Senate Bill 297 SD2 HD1 as is. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 297 SD2 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, Senate Bill 1527 SD2. We're going to move this out as an HD1. Read effecting the effective date to 6/30/3000 and tech. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1527 SD2 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving on to the next bill, Senate Bill 1277 SD2 HD1. We're going to be making a few amendments. We're going to move it out as an HD2. We're going to put in the AG amendments for the 4 additional, which comes out to about $7.5 million. We're going to be redefecting the effective date to 6/30/3000. Some technical amendments. We're going to be putting. Okay. So there's one more thing we got to do. We got to put in. There was language in the past before where we charged the respective departments for whatever the infraction was. So we're going to put that language back in the bill, and then we have to add. Okay, this bill will move eventually in this fiscal year. So because of that, and it has money, we have to put the expenditure ceiling language in it also. Okay, any discussion? Okay, Vice Chair for the vote.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1277 SD2 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving on to the next bill, Senate Bill 1490 SD1 HD1. We're going to move this out as an HD2. Redefecting the effective date 6/30/3000 with technical amendments. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1490 SD1 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Senate Bill 57 SD2 HD1 moving out as an HD2. Redefecting the effective date 6/30/3000 and tech. Discussion. Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 57 SD2 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next bill. Moving on to Senate Bill 813 SD1 HD1. We're going to move this out as an HD2. We're going to be blanking out the numbers, the fees, and deleting the reference to CPI, redefecting the effective date to 6/30/3000 and tech. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 813 SD1 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving on to Senate Bill 1166 SD2 HD1. We're going to move this out as an HD2. Redefecting the effective date, we're going to be defecting the effective date to 6/30/3000 and tech. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 1166 SD2 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving to Senate Bill 821 SD1 HD1, moving out at HD2, redefecting the effective date 6/30/3000 and tech. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 821 SD1 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any reservations by Representative Alcos? Are there additional reservations? Are there any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving to Senate Bill 151 SD2 HD1, we're gonna move it on at HD2. We're gonna be defecting the effective date to 6/30/3000 and tech. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 151 SD2 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Reservations by Representative Ward. Are there additional reservations? Are there any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving to Senate Bill 483 SD1 HD1, moving out in HD2, redefecting the effective date to 6/30/3000 and tech. Any discussion? Vice Chair.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 483 SD1 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, we're moving on to the next bill that was previously heard on March 29th at 2 p.m. We're gonna, Senate Bill 449 SD2 HD1. We're gonna move this out as an HD2. Okay, the amendments we're gonna be making is we're gonna be dissolving the commission and then moving it to the governor's office. And some technical amendments. Any discussion? Okay, Vice Chair for the vote.
Recommendation of the chair is to pass SB 449 SD2 HD1 with amendments. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, members. We are adjourned.